Good morning, everyone. How are you today? Hope that you are fine. Today we are going to start our next chapter from our story Oliver Twist, written by Charles Dickens. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little bit until you go to bring your storybook, then open page 20, chapter 4, Oliver Finds a Friend. Now let me ask you, do you remember what happened at the last chapter, chapter 3? Yes? Okay, so this is great. So we have stopped at the point that Oliver Twist went with Mr. Brownlow to his house in order to look after the little innocent boy. Okay? And Bill Sykes and Vagan and Nancy decided to have a plan in order to get the boy back. Let's see what will happen in this chapter to Oliver Twist. But before we go to the events, I want all of you please to move with me to slide number 2 in order to go through the main points first. Oliver's new friend, the life in Mr. Brownlow's house. The house in Pentonville was quiet and comfortable. The painting in the library. Oliver left Pentonville and went for a mission for Mr. Brownlow. Nancy's plan succeeded, and eventually what Oliver took from Mr. Brownlow. Are you ready to go to our chapter? Okay. Oliver was in a quiet, clean room, and he was lying on a big, soft bed with clean sheets and pillows. He looked around the room in a surprise. "Where am I?" Oliver whispered. A kind-looking woman was standing by the bed. "This is Mr. Brownlow's house, and I am his housekeeper." So, what does it mean, the housekeeper? Do you know the meaning of this word? Okay, housekeeper is a woman who paid by Mr. Brownlow in order to look after his house and in order to cook food and clean the house and so on. So Oliver was with the housekeeper of Mr. Brownlow, and she was looking after this young boy. "You have been very ill, but you are getting better now." A little later, the old gentleman with gold spectacles came into the room, and he looked down at Oliver. "How do you feel, my boy?" Mr. Brownlow asked. "Very, very happy, sir," Oliver replied. "Thank you for bringing me here." As the child spoke, his eyes closed again. Soon he was fast asleep. Mr. Brownlow went to sit in his library, and deep inside he was feeling strange thing. He looked at the painting on the wall of the library, and he said, "Well, this is very strange." The young girl that was hanging on one of the walls, the beautiful painting of the young girl that was hanging on one of the walls, Mr. Brownlow found that the girl looks like Oliver very, very much. And he thought deep inside and started to stare at the face of the girl in the portrait. "That's strange. The boy looks very like to her." Few days passed, and Oliver was well enough to get up, and Mr. Brownlow bought him some new clothes. Actually, in these few days, Oliver ate very, very good food, and he was in a very clean place. It was very warm, and all the people in the house treated him very kindly, so he got well very, very quickly. Mr. Brownlow didn't ask Oliver so many questions. He liked the young boy, though he was honest. Oliver was happy for the first time in his life, and for the first time he felt that something good happening to him. "You're very kind," Oliver said to Mr. Brownlow in one afternoon. "Can I do something for you? I can do anything for you." Perhaps you can," Mr. Brownlow answered with a smile. "I have some books to return to the bookstall and some money for the owner too." "I'll take them for you, sir," Oliver cried. "Please let me. I am stronger now. Tell me the way. I run straight there and give him the books and the money, and then return back home very quickly." So Mr. Brownlow gave Oliver the books and bound banknote. Banknote here, do you know that money divided into coins and banknote, which means the paper money? Okay, I'll take them for you, sir, Oliver cried. And the old gentleman and his housekeeper stood at the door and watched the boy run down the street. At the corner, Oliver turned and waved to them. Mr. Brownlow waved back, then he looked at his watch and thought, "The boy will be back in only 20 minutes, he said. Oliver was pleased that he finally can help Mr. Brownlow and do something for him. So he hurried along the streets with the books under his arm. But suddenly, a young woman appeared in front of his eyes. She grabbed him by the arm. "Oh, it's Oliver, my brother Oliver," the girl cried. "Come back to your sister and your parents, honey. Come back." Oliver cried in fear. "Oh no, it's Nancy." "That's right, your dear sister Nancy," the girl said, holding Oliver tightly. No, I'm an orphan," Oliver cried. "I live with Mr. Brownlow." Several people, which means many people, stood to listen. They watched Nancy pull Oliver along the street. Bill Sikes now walked up with his dog. When he reached them, "Oliver, you young villain," and villain means an evil and not good person. He said, "Come back to your mother and come back to your house," Bill said quietly. No, help me, someone, please help me," Oliver screamed. "Help you? I'll help you." Here, of course, Bill Sikes wasn't intending to help Oliver. He was making a cruel joke, and he was threatening Oliver that he is not going to help him, he will hurt him. Sikes shouted, "What are these?" He grabbed the books from Oliver and, "Books? Stolen books? Did you steal them? Have you? Here is my help for you," he shouted, hitting Oliver on the head. "Come, Bullseye," Bill called to his dog. "Stand next to him. Don't let him go." It was getting dark now. Sikes dragged, and what does it mean to drag someone? It means to just pull someone along. He grabbed Oliver along the streets and the dog followed. When the dog was following them, he was growling. What does it mean to growl? Making loud, angry noise, and we use this expression for the animals. Angry or frightened dogs growl. Okay, so here we use growl for angry, but for angry animals. It was getting dark, and Sikes still dragging Oliver along the streets. In a short time, Oliver was at Vagin's house back again. "Ha, ha, ha, I am pleased to see you back, Oliver." Who said this? Of course, Vagin. And actually, he was having a wicked smile on his face. And wicked here means very, very evil smile on his face. "You're looking very well now, Oliver, my dear. And look at his clothes. They are all new," Charlie said. "We will look after them for you, Oliver," Vagin said quietly and gently, but very cruelly at the same time. "They are too good to wear here." The Dodger was quietly taking things out of Oliver's pockets, and he whistled in surprise and held up the 5-pound banknote. "What's that? Money? That's mine!" Sikes cried, grabbing the banknote. No, Belle, my dear, you have the books," Vagin said quickly. "If I don't get the money, I'll take the boy back," Sikes shouted. "Don't forget, Nancy and me found the boy." Were they fighting? Yes, they were fighting. Actually, they took everything out of Oliver's pocket. So they found that there was books with Oliver, there was £5 banknote, and new clothes. When the Dodger got out the banknote out of Oliver's pocket, Bill Sikes said, "Okay, I'm going to take this money." But Wagon said, "No, this money will be here with me because you took the books." But actually, Sikes wasn't that easy. So he said, "No, of course not. I'm going to take the money because me and Nancy found the boy. And if you don't give me the money, I'm going to get the boy back again to the house that he was in." And after this arguing, Oliver began to cry. "The money belongs to Mr. Brownlow and the books too. Please, please send them back. He will think I have stolen them. He will think that I am a thief, please." Why Oliver said this? Because Oliver was very thankful for what Mr. Brownlow did for him, and he wasn't that bad deep inside in order to do something very bad like stealing him or something like this after this good things that have done for him. So he tried to convince Mr. Wagon and Mr. Sikes to return the money and the books back again to Mr. Brownlow. So this time he was very naive. He thought that they may be good to him, but actually, of course, they refused to return back the money or the books to Mr. Brownlow, and Oliver was feeling a little bit, or of course he was feeling a lot very deep sad and sorrow, because that maybe Mr. Brownlow think that he may be a thief. Don't worry, Oliver." Oliver began to cry over and over. But Wagon said, "Don't worry, Oliver. Of course he will think that you are a thief, but he will forget. Won't he? It couldn't be better, could it, Belle? He's a thief now. He's one of us. He's one of our gang. And we have got the boy for the whole life." And he started to laugh cruelly. When he heard this, Oliver gave a great shriek, like screaming or something like this, and he ran wildly to the door, but the boys pulled him back. "You want to call for help, do you, little Oliver?" Wagon said quietly, and he picked up a stick. "We will stop that, my dear." The old man hit Oliver very hard, and he raised his arm to hit him again, but Nancy ran forward and grabbed the stick. She broke it and threw it on the floor. "Leave the boy alone, Wagon," the girl cried. "I got him back for you. Isn't that enough? I got him back for this very bad life, for this dirty place. So isn't this enough for him? Please stop beating him." Bill Sikes stopped, and then he looked back to Nancy and laughed. "You are a strange friend, dear Nancy, for the boy. You caught him and brought him back, but now you wanted to help him. Be quiet, or I'll set the dog on you." What does it mean to set the dog on someone? It means if someone sets a dog on another person, that means that they are telling the dog to attack this person, to go and attack this person. So he tried to threat Nancy by saying to her, "I set the dog on you and on the boy too. Do what you like with me, Belle, but you don't hurt Oliver. Please don't hurt him." She turned to Wagon and said with a very, very sharp accent, "You made me a thief. Now you will make this boy a thief too?" She screamed, and then she began to cry. Wagon didn't listen to her, and he said, "Charlie, take off Oliver's nice new clothes, then put him to bed." "You must be tired, dear Oliver." And he started to laugh back again. Oliver now he's alone, terrified, and he was locked in another room, and he couldn't escape this time. The poor unhappy Oliver cried himself to sleep. Mr. Brownlow looked at his watch. 1 hour passed, and then 2, and then 3, and here the darkness fell, but Oliver didn't return. Now, do you think Nancy was a good or a bad person? Yes, I think now you're feeling that she wasn't that bad, and she was in circumstances that made her made her do this very bad things or do this very bad actions, like stealing, like acting, like getting Oliver back to Wagon and so on. But actually, deep inside, she wasn't that bad. She was a real good person, and that what will happen in the next chapters. And to this point, let's move to slide number 3 in order to check all the new words that we're having for today. Housekeeper, a woman paid by Mr. Brownlow to look after his house. Villain, an evil person. Help you, Bill Sikes is making a cruel joke and threaten to Oliver Twist, and he is not going to help him, he is going to hurt him. Moving to slide number 4, and with the fourth word, growling, which means making a loud, angry noise. But angry, frightened, dogs growl, or animals in general. You are going to find word 5 on slide number 4 too. Set the dog on you, which means if someone sets a dog on you, they tell the dog to attack you. Let's move to slide number 5 and go for the oral questions. Who was Oliver's new friend? Of course, Mr. Brownlow. How was the life in Bentonville? It was very good, very quiet and comfortable. What was painted in the portrait hanged in the library? A girl with a face that looks like Oliver very much. What was the errand or the mission that Oliver went to do? It was to give back the books and the money to the owner of the bookstore. Was Nancy's plan clever? Yes, she was clever, but actually it was an evil plan. Moving to slide number 6 in order to have our questions for today. Are you ready? I have some books to return to the bookstore and some money for the owner too. I'll take them for you, sir, Oliver cried, and he said, please let me, I'm stronger now. Tell me the way, I'll run straight there and back. So Mr. Brownlow gave Oliver the books and the £5 banknote. Let's start with the first question. What did Mr. Brownlow want Oliver to do? He wanted him to take the books back to the bookstall and give the owner of the bookstall the £5 banknote. Moving to slide number 7. Who was Oliver's new friend? He was Mr. Brownlow. Here we have reached the end of chapter 4. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being with you today, and I'm going to meet you back with the chapter number 5 in the next session. Thank you.